Welcome back to another episode of Housing Solutions of New York's podcast, One Step Away, a safe space to transform lives one step at a time. I am your host, the one and only, right? The Chief Program Officer here at Housing Solutions, Dr. Alex Rivera, also known as Dr. X. I'm excited for y'all to come join us today because we're going to branch out a little bit. A lot of times we've been talking to people, they in New York City or they an elected official or something in New York City. But today, y'all got to ride with me across the bridge. And I don't mean the bridge to Queens and Brooklyn or Staten Island. I mean, y'all got to ride with me the other way. We got to go a little east today and talk to our colleagues out in Long Island. So I want to bring to the, I want to say stage, but I want to bring to the platform today Laura Harding, who works at Housing Help Long Island. Hey, Laura.
Hello, Dr. X. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Well, I'm good. I'm good. I'm here with you, so that always makes me good.
And we're gonna have a good time.
Every time I see you, I have a good time.
Well, let's do it. So I know. So I want to give this disclaimer because I remember the first time I learned about your organization. I was like, "Is it Housing Solutions?" See, I thought you was Housing Solutions Long Island, but you're not. It's Housing Help. So I want our viewers to understand there's no connection yet. We'll be connected in the future because we've already started by being on panels together and being in multiple spaces together as colleagues and friends. But talk to me about what your role is over at Housing Help,
So,
your area of expertise in like the housing advocacy counseling space.
yes. So I am a consultant at Housing Help that focus specifically on the Access ADU program, which is a way that Housing Help sees as increasing affordable housing options for homeowners and renters in general and people in general, specifically on Long Island, but obviously we would love for it to be across the state. Housing Help on its own is led by the great Pilar Moya Mancera, who is small and mighty, just like her organization. It is a HUD certified counseling agency. So, Housing Help basically helps folks who are interested in becoming homeowners. It helps people who are in pre foreclosure. It offers them solutions. It also works with tenants and renters to provide them and connect them to legal services or additional services that can help protect their rights. But I want to say this about Housing Help. Because it's more than just a housing agency. One of the things that Pilar really believes in is being a resource to her community. And
Mm.
I met her when I was in my role leading another organization. And when I left there, she asked me to come do this advocacy work for them. But when I was at the other organization, she invited me to come and be Mrs. Claus at her Three Kings celebration that she held in Riverhead and Huntington in the middle of January, right? In the middle of winter. And her goal was to not only come into communities as a help for housing, but also as a resource. So Pilar raised the money herself from help with elected officials. She purchased coats and other
Mm-hmm.
clothes for children from birth all the way to 12. She asked for donations for toys. She served hot chocolate and popcorn, and it was a drive-through because of COVID. Literally, folks would drive and come up, and we would say to them, me and my Spanglish, because I'm trying to be
You
respectful.
kind of learn.
Yeah, I'm trying to learn, girl. So, I'm trying to be Mrs. Claus. So they're looking at me like, okay, Mrs. Claus is black. All right. Mr. Claus was a white man. And then we had the Three Kings. We had everybody. The students from the high school would dress up as camels and horses.
Wow.
And parents would tell us what size they needed, or people would tell us what size they needed for the children, and we would get them everything from coats to onesies to everything they needed. And let me say this about that. This is when I got to see real poverty.
Yeah.
And you don't think about it because we always assume, especially in the city, it's really easy in New York City to see, I'm from Brooklyn, so it's really easy to see who has and who doesn't, right? Because the
Yeah.
buildings tell the story sometimes, because sometimes you could be in a ratchet building and inside looks like heaven, right? But the
Right.
buildings tell the story, the corner stores tell the story. You could
Mhm.
look around and tell. But on Long Island and in a lot of suburban areas, we see people driving in these cars. So they're pulling up in BMWs, and your judgment is, oh my gosh, like a BMW? Why are you here? But then when you look in the car, first of all, you can hear the car coming because it needs to be serviced.
That part
Then when you look in the car, some of these folks were living in the
in their
car.
car.
You're seeing piles and bags. They're like 7-Eleven kids in there. It looks lived in, not the lived in that you and I have where we keep our shoes in there, extra jacket, and some
Right.
makeup.
Just in case we got to run
Just
out
in
for
case
something.
we have to
Yeah.
change.
Yeah. Switch it
It
up a little
looks
bit.
like this is where they woke up and this is where they will sleep. And it really opened my eyes to how we live in
Yeah.
places that where we're so oblivious to the plight of others, and that sometimes we are so impressed with the brand of a car or how people show up, not knowing that they may have taken a bath at the gym,
Yeah.
that their
Yeah.
children are showing up, and that they need these clothes and this popcorn and this hot chocolate may be their meal or their thing for the day.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
We don't think about the bigger pictures.
we don't.
But
And so
but
that
so before you
allows.
continue, but wait, before you continue, you mentioned the ADU part of
Mhm.
housing. Okay. So break down that acronym for people who
Yes.
listen
So
and break
ADU,
down why you're pushing
yes.
it. Why does the agency push it?
So we live in acronym world. So for the rest of the for the rest of for the normal people who don't deal with elected officials and agencies and all of this stuff
The
with the
stress-free
alphabet soup,
people. The
the stress-free
stress-free
people,
people. There we
who we
go.
hope we're working on your behalf.
Yes.
Um, accessory dwell ADUs mean accessory dwelling units. So on Long Island, but even in New York City, accessory dwelling units are usually places. It could be sometimes a basement apartment, right? It could be, if you live in a brownstone, it could be one of the apartments because it's usually owner occupied. It can also be um, a structure on your land or near your house. So it could be your garage, it could be a coach house, something where legally, and I'm talking about legal structures and legal apartments, you are allowed to rent, or someone else is allowed to live there. It has a bathroom,
Mm-hmm.
kitchen, and obviously it meets the legal standard. Now, I'm from Brooklyn, and you're from the Bronx, so a lot of apartments, Queens,
Yeah,
even
they
on
don't need
Brooklyn.
that.
You know, I've lived in a room before, right? When I
Yes.
was a college student, you lived in a room, you rented that room, you paid weekly, you
Yeah.
shared the bathroom and the kitchen. We're not talking about that. We're
Yeah.
talking about literally another apartment. And the
Okay.
reason that housing help is really pushing this as one of the solutions to the affordable housing crisis across New York State is because, one, it is a excellent it's an excellent way for new homeowners to purchase their homes
Okay.
because they can count on that rental income to help pay their mortgage. It's a way for seniors who are usually house rich and cash poor to
Yeah.
stay in their homes. And it's a way for people in need of affordable housing to find legal, affordable housing in places, especially like suburbs like Queens,
Mm-hmm.
won't break their bank, but allows them access to high quality education, a safe legal apartment, right? And the reason I'm saying legal is
Yeah.
because we all know that, especially in New York City,
Yeah.
there's so many people who have died with illegal apartments,
Yeah.
whether it's by fires or floods.
Basements, no windows,
Basement, no
no
window.
access to stuff. Yeah, a lot of those things impact renters being able to have
Yes,
access or being able to
yes.
do before we jump, because I have a lot of questions. You know me, I'm gonna get you going with the
Yep.
renters in Long Island. But as a consultant, what does your typical day look like? What is the
Woo.
overall support that's
Yeah,
needed in your role and through housing help?
yeah. So as a consultant, my first job is always to ask Pilar, what is it she wants me to accomplish? What is our goal? What are we focused on? Um, I defer to her because there's so much I can learn from her, right? I've been in this space having led my own organization. So one of the things as a consultant that you have to be willing to do is you bring your expertise to the table, but you also have to be willing to hear what your client wants, what they want to accomplish, how they want the message told, not how I think the message should be told. We build together that. We build
Yeah,
together messaging, right? But I also am, she's my client.
got you.
So my goal is always, what is it that we're trying to accomplish and what are the ways you want to do that? And she brings her expertise and I bring my expertise. And I love it because she's a Latina woman.
Mm-hmm.
She has connections in places I don't.
Yeah.
And because I'm a black woman, I have
Connect.
connections in places she doesn't. So it is really like the meeting of a mind. And the other thing, the final thing I would say is that what I appreciate is that I learn from her as much as she may say she learns from me. So it's a mutual admiration, growth conversation. So my day looks with like once she has given me my marching orders,
Yeah.
I'm doing outreach to elected officials. I am doing outreach to civic organizations, to residents. I am reviewing data. I am reviewing zoning policies. I am also looking at what's happening on the federal and state level. So there's a level of research that goes
Yeah.
into it.
Yeah.
There's a level of outreach and communication. And then there's a level of developing the story and how we will tell the story to engage stakeholders, different stakeholders who will be impacted by what we're trying to accomplish.
So how did you get into this work? How did you get into advocating?
You gonna
Uh,
laugh. How do I get into advocating?
well, I want to talk about housing, but I mean, mix
Yeah.
it all together.
Period.
Put that stew
Yeah.
in one pot, okay?
Yeah.
How
So
did you get into
let's
this whole space, or when did
yeah,
you merge it
yeah,
all to become
yeah.
housing? Because when I met
Listen.
you, you were at the other organization,
Yes.
and you
Yes.
were still doing the exact same,
Yes.
same fight, same advocacy that you're
Yeah.
doing now, just
Yeah.
a different organization. And so talk to me about like your passion for housing,
Yeah.
particularly in Long Island,
Yeah. Yeah.
because then that's going to shift me over into the renters in the rental.
Okay. So let me go all the way back. I'm an immigrant. I was born in Barbados, came to America when I was 10. So I arrived from English speaking country with my accent, good old immigrant girl in Brooklyn, right?
Right.
That Brooklyn in the middle of the crack epidemic, right? Like someone just posted on IG the announcement where they said in 1984 that they were going to introduce 718 as an area code for Brooklyn, Queens, and the Bronx. And I was like, well, that's the year I came to America. Like, I moved here, right? And I was like, oh my gosh. So we lived in a beautiful apartment, but guess what? We had to bang on the radiator
Yeah.
when it got cold
They could
because
work.
our landlord
So it could work.
would, so it could work or so we could let the landlord know, sir. You need to turn this heat up, right? But I was afforded the opportunity to attend excellent public schools. So I'm a graduate of Brooklyn Technical High School. Um, but during my time at Brooklyn Tech, because my mom had moved up here when I was 3 and I didn't join her till I was 7,
Uh-huh.
we did not get along. So I spent my 15th to 16th year sleeping on subways,
Wow.
being homeless. I was kicked out of my house. And when I got to, and a friend of mine, I was doing the club scene and sleeping here, sleeping there, trying to get a space wherever I could. Sometimes I stayed with family, sometimes I didn't. And I met a really nice guy, and he said, "Look, you are young, you are smart, you need to get out these streets before you get hurt."
Mm.
And one night, he took me to Covenant House, under 21. And from Covenant House, they put me in the girls' group home on 47th Street.
Wow.
And when I got to the girls' group home, I was truant from school. They got me back in school. And the counselors there said, "You are too smart. We have to be really careful about where we place you."
Mm.
So they held on to me for 3 months. You're only supposed to stay there for 30 days. They held on to me for 3 months and put me in the Salvation Army group home in Left Rack City. And prior to that, I wanted to be a lawyer.
Okay.
But when all of that happened for me, the social workers were so key and clutch to keeping me in school and keeping me on track.
Mm-hmm.
I decided I wanted to be a social worker. So when I graduated and went back home and went to Adelphi for undergrad, I did social work as a major, African American studies as a minor. But I decided I didn't want to do counseling. I wanted to go into policy. Went to University of Chicago for grad school, and worked for 10 years in the education social work space. Went to law school. So I worked for Bronx Defenders. I worked for Legal Aid Juvenile Rights Division in Brooklyn, doing social work, forensic social work. And went back to law school when I moved to DC to do some education work. And I got into this space because even though I stayed in education,
Yeah.
you cannot talk about education without talking about housing. Because what we know in America, post Brown v. Board of Ed, which dealt with segregation, is that even to today,
Mm-hmm.
your zip code tells the story of your life,
It does.
and and can chart where you will end up.
Yes.
And you
And
do
it
this
tells
working,
how people interact with you, right?
and it tells
Sometimes
how
when you
people
say to
interact.
somebody, "Oh, I'm from wherever,"
Yes,
they instantly will say, "Ooh," or "Ah," right? Versus, and mind you, you may not have that "ooh" or "ah" experience, but
correct,
because you say
correct,
you're from X, Y, and Z, they're like,
correct,
"Oh," if you say you're from another part, So
correct.
I'm with you there.
So when I got to adult, so when you talk about Long Island, if you had told me in 2022 when I came back to Long Island that I was going to be on Long Island doing anything, I would have said the devil is a liar and so are you.
Yeah.
Because my experience with Long Island as a student at Adelphi University in the 90s was like, this is the Twilight Zone. You know, we were taking the train to Garden City. They were looking at it. They didn't even want us walking on their sidewalks when it snowed or it was cold. They would ice it over so you had to walk in the streets.
Yeah.
And the white students that were there, you know, we built friendships, but they were driving sports cars, and I was trying to figure out how to pay my tuition.
That part. Don't get me.
And
I
they
got
were like,
stories too.
yeah, and they were like, look,
I remember being in high school. My mother, I was in public school until sophomore year in high school because my older sister went straight through public school, and my mama said, "We're not
yeah,
doing that again. We're not doing
we're not
that
doing
no."
that.
Because I was going to Walden in the South Bronx. As soon as I cut a class, my mother was like, "No, no, 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 no." So she shipped me up to White Plains, and I ended up in private school. But in private school,
Yeah,
my mother is scrap. I don't know. I say to this day, and I always tell my mother, "Don't ever tell me how you paid my tuition. I don't want to hear
right.
it. I don't
Let me
want to know.
romanticize it.
I don't want to
Right.
know." But I know my mother was paying my tuition. But the point is, my mother's over here paying tuition. I'm just getting to school. And these girls is over here fighting over which new BMW they gonna get because they
Correct.
crashed the last one. You're like,
Correct. Correct.
and I'm
And the
like, I just
bathrooms
want to
were dirty
graduate.
because
I want to
someone
get away
else
from
cleaned
you.
up their bathrooms after them. So they didn't know how to take the shower head and get the
They
hair
didn't
off the
know
wall.
nothing. They didn't know nothing. They just knew
Yeah.
that the book.
Correct.
Okay, yeah,
Correct.
okay, keep going.
So this is where we are. So they would make a big deal of going into the city. They'd be like, "Oh my God, we're going into the city," and it was Long Island. So there was no way I thought I would end up in Long Island again. But this opportunity happened that I wasn't looking for, and I went back and I thought about the black Long Islanders, the Latino Long Islanders that I knew who didn't always have the same experience as their white
Yeah,
counterparts. They didn't have the same experience as me in the city, but their experience was still lacking because people heard Long Island and thought that they had access to a high quality education.
yeah.
People heard Long Island and thought that they were living in these fabulous
Homes, yeah, they
houses,
have to be.
these homes, right? And in fact, the reality is, till today, if you live in Hempstead, the village, if you live in Roosevelt, right? If you live in parts of Bay Shore, if you live in certain
Yeah.
communities on Long Island, you you may not wine dance, you may not graduate high
Mhm.
school, or if you do by the skin of your teeth, you're not equipped to have a family sustaining job, far less go to college.
Gotcha.
So when I got back to Long Island, and I looked at the work that Erase Racism was doing, and it was about education, but it was also about housing. I was like, oh my gosh. So looking at housing from the city
Yeah.
perspective and looking at it from a suburban perspective is so different because, and this is why it's hard to do statewide housing in New York State, because many times the needs of the city are counterproductive
Mhm.
or counterintuitive or really the complete opposite of the needs of the suburbs.
Yeah.
So, a lot of times when you're doing work with the suburbs, if they hear you're from the city, they immediately shut you down
We
because
already
they
seen
feel
that when the new mayor of New York
you
City came in, they was putting more cameras by the board.
correct,
But we
correct.
can also shift here and say, let's talk about why. Maybe this is a premature question, but in Long Island,
Mhm.
let me take that back. In most places, people are anti affordable housing. In most places, they are anti renters, right? Now,
Mhm.
one
Mhm.
side, I guess you can kind of agree, not agree, but on one side, you're like, oh, I can hear your slight argument. Then on the other side, you're like, no,
You're
people
trying to
need,
be nice, Dr.
huh?
X. So we just got to call, you're trying to be nice. Let's call it what it is. Okay, let's call it what it is.
I was trying to be diplomatic,
No, you're trying to be
but
nice, but let's call it what it is. Let's get down to brass tacks because in this day and age, with what we're dealing with, we don't have time to sugarcoat
yeah,
stuff. So the reality is that historically, and I'm going to talk about New York State, but really the country has been dealing with the effects of discriminatory housing, exclusionary zoning, redlining, and we're still feeling its effects today.
yeah,
Now, what has changed is that sometimes the people who are perpetuating these
hmm
isms look like you and me.
most times. But that was not most times they look like. Yep.
Right? And there's a reason. There are a couple reasons for that. So, one is obviously that you can understand is the fact that when you go through the data in New York State and what's the center at NYU, they have a lot of this data. You begin to find that when the state or city builds affordable
Yeah,
housing, they always go to our communities, even when we're homeowners.
yeah,
Even when you have a same community that is sometimes well integrated, they always somehow find space on the black side of the street
yeah,
to build the affordable housing. So many people in our communities already feel like we become the stepchildren, and they always choose our community. Our communities are overburdened with affordable housing.
Agree, but I
Then
don't
there's
think
this.
that we are the mass applicants for said affordable housing venues either.
Well, let me finish. I'm getting now to the piece where we talk about what affordable housing
Yeah.
means. So, irrespective of your socioeconomic status, irrespective of your ethnic race and ethnicity, even though we're all one human race and it's more ethnicity, but we're gonna go
Right.
with
We'll
race because
go with
that's what
that.
people
Yeah,
say.
we'll go with that.
Um, Anytime you say affordable housing, even to recipients of affordable
Uh-huh.
housing, there is a stigma that is
Yes.
attached. We assume that they're going to be black and
Low
brown.
income.
We assume that they're going to be extra low income. And we assume that they're going to be criminal
Yeah.
minded because we have bought into the belief that poverty means that you are a criminal. Meanwhile, many of the people who are now
Come on.
homeowners
Say it.
are one generation
Uh-huh.
away, meaning their mama was on Section
That
8.
part.
Therefore, they were. The reason they were able to purchase a house sometimes is through that same Section 8
Most
voucher,
times.
or because they got, they saved and scrimped. And as soon as they become homeowners, they forget the struggle.
Oh.
And now it becomes, well, why can't that person work as hard as me?
Or as I
Who
did.
says they're not?
Right.
Or as I did? Who says they're not? But this is also not 1993. This is not 1984.
Yeah.
Starter homes are not 30,000, 40,000,
Are the
50,000.
taxes on the house even that amount nowadays? But let's keep going. You're right. Start
No,
starter
right?
homes ain't no 30,000.
So there are no starter homes.
They don't
Right
want you
now,
to start. Don't start.
I they don't want you to start. I had a Jewish partner in a law firm say to me that if he had to purchase his house today that he purchased when he first became an attorney, he would not be able to. Because the house that he purchased for about
Yeah.
$300,000 was now worth almost $1
Wow.
million. So when we hear affordable, we don't think about seniors. We don't think about new college grads. We don't think about new young couples. We don't
Emerging
even think
adults,
about
nothing.
emerging adults who got a bonus from their job and they want to buy a condo or something. We don't think about any of that. All we think about are
Low income
is
criminals.
low income people that are
With this,
criminals,
don't
right?
forget they got
In
that
fact,
Section 8 voucher too. They got all of that.
many of the people that qualify as in need of affordable housing today, certainly on Long Island and across New York City, are some of the ones who say no to affordable housing because they don't see themselves as needing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So we need to understand that, people go straight to affordable housing, but they never talk about the stereotypes and the biases that come with that. And they always want us to relanguish the name.
Yeah.
They wanted that. Why don't you use workforce housing? Why don't you use? I'm like, no. Why are we calling it's affordable
That part.
housing? Why do I need to relanguage it? Why don't you change your bias?
It's so many things that we can break this down, especially because a lot of times when they build these levels of affordable housing, and I want to go with my air quotes for a second of affordable housing because sometimes they're
Yeah.
placed in parts, particularly like in the cities, and you can speak to Long Island, where it says affordable because they might have 5 units that is catering to
Yep.
a salary range of under 50,000. They might, but the rest of the
Right.
building is $200,000, and you're like, this is how is this affordable and where, right? um and for
And for
whom, because
whom?
that is not even the emerging leader. Like, even if they
Yes.
have an entry level management job at like 60, 70,000, let's say, they may want to, like you're saying, live independently, live on their own. But no, we're like, no, you either make, of
Can I share
course.
something with you? when I it took me on Long Island, I literally stayed with my cousin
Hmm.
in Bayshore as the leader of a nonprofit because I have a daughter who's away at college. For me to afford an
Hmm.
apartment on my salary for a two-bedroom for her and I would have been prohibitively
Wow.
expensive for me. I have a law degree. I had 3 degrees. I'm a lawyer, a barred attorney. I was moving back from DC and I found a struggle. So I stayed with my cousin. I was like, look, I'll hit you off. Like, can I get a
Right.
cot in a,
Just
you know,
somewhere. Yeah.
a cot because it was so expensive. And my boy was like, well, why can't you find a place? And I'm like, run me some money and I'll find a place. But it's like
Run
it's
me
Long
some money.
Island. Like, yeah, run me some coin because I think people really don't understand, especially if you've been a homeowner, just how
Yeah.
expensive it is. Like
Don't get me started on Texas.
the taxes on Long Island are expensive. Coming from New York City, where I could hop on the subway, I spent my 2 years, I still do. I got around on Uber and the Long Island Railroad. And everybody was like, well, how are you doing it? And I was like, listen, I wasn't poor, but I don't know how the
Are
poor
doing
people
it.
on Long Island
Correct.
without cars. Because it was more expensive to be poor.
Yeah.
Because the transit system is not like
Correct.
that of the city. So these are the struggles that people are dealing with. And I always say no one works harder than a poor person because you're talking about people who are leaving one job to go to another job, sometimes on different
Yeah.
sides of the island, right? So the island goes east west, but transportation going north south.
It ain't that easy. So then let's bring it back to how housing help plays a part in all of this, or how we bring those
So
services
so what
directly to the
housing
people of
yeah.
Long Island.
So what Housing Help does, so what the reason I brought up the Three Kings celebration was one of the ways Housing Help showed the people that it was about the people was it constantly did things for the community. They didn't feel like we needed to go in and just tell a
Right.
community what to do or just say
Right.
here are services. They wanted to use their actions to show that they are committed to the success of that community, to all members, whether they needed housing help services or not. The second thing housing help does is it helps work with people to move them towards home ownership. So you can do your, budgeting. You can take classes. You can learn about Sony May and all the federal loans and grants to get you to home ownership. But the other thing it did was that it also helped homeowners facing
Hmm.
pre-foreclosure avoid pre-foreclosure. And right now, Nassau and Suffolk County, excuse me, are leading New York
Wow.
State in pre-foreclosures. And then we offer some services to
Okay.
tenants. And the other thing, a lot of times other organizations call Pilar and they're like, Pilar, I have a couple here. They need to find a place to live. And can you make some phone calls? And she'll make phone calls to different agencies from Long Island Housing Partnership to CDLI to Long Island Housing Services to either get people legal assistance, get them financial assistance, or just get them sometimes a
Yeah.
place to be. And we're seeing a lot of families, right? We're seeing parents with children. We're seeing a lot of immigrants, both those who are here legally and some undocumented. We're seeing a lot of elders and seniors, right? And so our goal is always what are the other ways we can help? And that's how we got into ADUs because we were like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the suburbs, you can kill two
Yeah.
birds with one stone. You can keep people in
And
their
get them
homes,
supplemental income.
and you
And somebody
get
gets
them
someplace to
supplemented income,
live.
which and somebody gets a
Like a win.
place to
So,
live without overburdening, without one building
buildings.
new buildings that
Correct.
could
Correct.
change the community, because there's a lot of concern about that, without
Mm-hmm.
overburdening the system. And as a renter, because you're renting in someone's home, you are becoming a fabric
Yeah.
of the community, which is very different than building a
Yeah.
huge building with a bunch of
When you talked
strangers.
about like the ADUs being in like garages, in the garage,
Hmm.
that homeowner would have to install a bathroom and kitchen. Is that what you have to do?
They would have to bring it up to whatever code that particular locality says. So, the state, New York State has this program called
Okay.
ADU plus one, where what they're doing, the governor has allocated some money so that current homeowners who live in places where
Mm-hmm.
ADUs are legal can apply to get money to bring their house up to code, so that it can become habitable and obviously meet the law, and make it an
Yeah.
ADU to make it available. But when we talk about accessory dwelling units that and places that currently have accessory dwelling units, I want to talk about some of the barriers that are there in these
Mm-hmm.
places, make it really hard for people to take advantage of that. So, for example, in some places, there's a requirement that you live in the home for 3 years before you can even think of having
Mm.
an ADU. So that's another barrier. So think about it. If you are a new homeowner and you need a
Yeah,
tenant
you
to
got to wait
help pay
three
your
years.
mortgage, you gotta wait three
You may
years. You
not
may
make it
not
three
even
years the way these
qualify.
mortgage taxes is set,
You're not gonna make it 3 years. Not in this economy. Have you seen the job numbers that just came
or the property
out?
taxes on the
Okay.
house. Okay, yes, I
Or
got
the
you. But you
property
got to wait three
taxes.
years.
Yeah, or the sewers. Right. Then there's stuff like a lot of the criteria is
Okay.
subjective. So they'll say stuff like you have to have reasonable use.
And
Well,
who
what's
defines
reasonable? And who defines reasonable? Right? Then there's stuff like when they
yeah.
do make it easy to get ADUs,
What?
you know what they do? They use off street parking as a way to curb
Wow.
access. So there'll be things like if it's a single family home, you can only have two off street parking spots. Now, you're like, well, that's not unreasonable. Okay, but we're on Long Island. So if you are
Mm-hmm.
a couple, right, and both of you have your own cars, that means the driveway
Yeah.
is already full. Then if you have two children and they come to driving age, and you can afford, whether it's a rut tut or a brand new car, you can afford to buy each child
Car. Yep.
a car. That's now four
But there's only
cars
two
in a
parking
household
spaces.
with there's only two parking spaces. Now you're going to use two additional on street parking. And now you're talking about renting to someone. And if you have a one
That could be
bedroom,
a
that could
couple,
be a
then you'd have
couple.
another.
So that's now another
Yeah,
two
a lot of
cars.
times system
So you see how
these
this becomes a
systems
barrier?
sometimes they give us a little and they take a little and they give a little
Correct.
and they take a
Correct.
little. Um
Correct. Correct. So they curb it. They curb it. And then they're like, well, we're not being discriminatory. We're not being exclusionary. Yeah,
Very
but
much
you
so.
are. And so our goal is not to beat people down and say how terrible you are. Our goal is to say, how can we work with you to maybe still take into account all of the things that you want to? Because people move to
Yeah.
the suburbs for a reason. People move to us suburbs because they want more space. They want to know their neighbors, even though I will claim that you probably know more of your neighbors in the city than in the suburbs. But that's another story for another day, depending on the age of your children. And they want space. So we don't
Yeah.
want to take that away. But the reality is, if Long Island hopes to remain competitive as a place where people don't have to go to the city to work, where employers can see it as a viable place. So, because they have employees that live there, we're going to have to do more than we're currently doing. And we can shift some of our zoning to still maintain the suburban feel without doing a lot of
Yeah.
large building through loosening access and increasing access to accessory
Well,
dwelling units.
it's a
It's a win-win. I don't see how you say no in this day and age,
is
given where
that
this
is so
economy is
true,
about
and
is
it's so much
headed
that
to.
we could like. You just every time you start talking, you just dropping more gems, and this conversation can keep going, and they cutting us off in a minute, and I'm like, yeah,
I
I'm
know we
like,
got
oh
3 minutes.
no. So you
I
know
know,
what
I
that
know, I
means,
know.
right? That means that Laura, you got to come back, right? You have to come
Yes,
back. You got to
you know.
come back and
Listen,
talk.
you know I love you. You know I love the work you do. I want to sit and hear about your work because it's
Listen,
so
we be
important.
recording for
And every
hours if we both
time,
get between the me and you.
no, every time I sit with you, I'm like, every time I hear you speak, I stand her, y'all. Just so you know, I'm
I
a
love you
fangirl of
too.
Dr. X. My whole aesthetic,
Listen,
everything
we
that
doing
she's
this. It's
doing,
us.
every
Sisters do
time
it
I see
together. We
her,
doing this together, whether it's housing advocacy, housing help, or housing solutions. We gonna get the job
yes,
done. Any
yes,
last words that you
yes,
have to
we don't
say
get the job.
for anybody who's listening, maybe in Long Island, regarding like housing and housing insecurity?
Yeah. Whether it's Long Island or New York City, what I want you to remember is that we are only as good as the
Mm,
least of us. And that opening up your home and construct and thought about affordable housing and how you want it to occur in your community. Don't just let the city or the state tell you how it should be. You have a voice, but don't be so quick to use that voice to say no. Instead, use that voice to say how. And
That's a
I'm going
good
to leave
ending.
you
Thank
with
y'all
that.
for joining us today. Thank y'all. We're gonna bring Laura back for another episode. For all of y'all on here, follow Housing Solutions of New York. Follow Housing Help of Long Island. Get to
Housing,
know more.
healthy.
So by the time you tune
Yes.
in again, you'll be more of a pro than we are when we do our second episode. Everybody, enjoy your day. Make
Yay!
sure that you smile at somebody today because smiles go a very long way. And always remember that we are all just one step away.